All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my monthly YouTube live. We're December, so I guess this is the last YouTube live, most likely of December, unless any big news breaks in the next few weeks before the end of the year, which is possible. I think I went live last week for Uber's safety report and talked all about that. But if you guys are just joining for the first time, welcome. And we do these each and every single month. So if this is your first time, welcome. And if you're coming back, good to see you back. I see a lot of familiar names in the live chat right now. So if you are watching this live at Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, then you'll be able to participate in the live chat. I see Jason, Dan, Ray's World. It looks like a lot of folks right now are talking about the weather. So I know I'm here in California and it's 60 degrees. Kind of cold for me, to be honest, but I know it's a lot colder in other parts of the country. So sometimes, that cold weather creates a lot of opportunity for driving, though, right? I know we've got a couple videos on driving on the snow. So in the snow. So we can definitely talk about that. I see Jonathan. Good to see you again. Uberman. I think this is the new Uberman, not the old Uberman. What's going on, new Uberman? But if you guys haven't given this video a thumbs up, go ahead and do that now. That's a big help to me and lets other people see the stream and come back for more. If you want to be notified when I go live, since now we're doing usually 2 to 3 YouTube lives a month, in addition to all the videos we release on a weekly basis. All you have to do is subscribe. So hit that bell and make sure notifications are on. That way you'll get a little notification when I go live. And that's sort of the best way to find out when I go live. So what I want to do today, I want to, we're going to spend about an hour today, or, we'll go for however long the good questions are coming in and for as long as we can talk about good information. But I want to cover a couple of the top news stories that we've seen recently. The Uber safety report was a big news story that I know some of you might have some questions on. And then the other big news, which you probably saw the video that Jay did and the article we released over on the rideshare guy, but the fact that Uber is now allowing drivers in California to see passengers' destination and how much they're paying. So this has been a huge change, and we actually are working on a video right now that's one of our contributors, Ezra, he went out last weekend and did some driving with these new features. He may be joining the live right now, but he's busy working on a video and kind of talk about the good and bad of these new features. So we can get into that. And let's see. And maybe some other any other news stories that you guys want to discuss. And then definitely stay tuned to the end of the live stream because we're going to be doing a cool giveaway tonight. We tend to review a lot of dash cams on the channel. I always get these dash cam companies hitting me up and they want to, us to review their dash cam. And then I ask them, oh, do you want to advertise on the channel? And they say, nope, we don't have enough money for that, but we can send you a few dash cams. And so usually my compromise is that we usually try to do once a month. We try to go out and test a new dash cam and then we ask them for 3 or 4. And one of the companies we just reviewed, I believe we have Blue Sea Sky dash cams. And so I'll leave a link to the review we did for that Blue Sea Sky. But basically, we had 2 extra dash cams from them. And so on tonight's YouTube Live, at the end of tonight's YouTube Live, I'm going to be giving away 2 Blue Sea Sky dash cams. And I believe they're like $100 or $150. So definitely stay tuned to the end and you guys will have a chance to win one of those dash cams. You will have to give this video a thumbs up though and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So do that now. And without being said, I'm going to start getting into some of these top stories and answering your questions because I think that there's always, as usual, there's a lot going on. So if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. I talked about the winter weather. I mean, right now we're in December and January and February and, here in California, where I am in Los Angeles, it doesn't snow much. It does rain, but I'm curious to know what you guys think of driving in the snow because I know we've got a good video on this in the past. And basically, what I've found is that adverse weather, whether it's snow in, the Midwest or even sometimes heavy rain in California, can actually be a good thing for drivers. You kind of have to understand that, it's a little more dangerous to drive at those times, and you want to make sure that you have the right right type of car and all of that, or snow tires or whatever it might be. But definitely we see surging in snow, and just more, less drivers are out, and a lot of times there's actually more passenger demand. Sometimes people go out less, but they're definitely going to be walking less in the snow and the rain. So I think that snow and heavy rain create a lot of opportunity for drivers. But just the one thing that I would caution is you don't want to go out with any piece of crap car in the snow. You want to make sure that you have good snow tires, or if you're driving out in heavy rain, you want to make sure that you have relatively new tires and you're driving safe and all that. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think about driving in snow or just adverse weather in general. Do you do it? Do you think it's worth the trade-off? I've personally found that it is. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. Barry says, never drive in the snow, not worth the accidents. Whack Track says, snow driving isn't worth what Uber pays. Araldo says, I do drive in snow. And so I think you guys have to understand, right? At normal rates, I tend to agree with that, right? But sometimes, and that's sort of why I always think it's important to kind of keep an eye on the surge and you'll really understand the patterns, right? Because if you can go out and make 2-3x, or, if you're on a flat rate surge and you're seeing, $5, $10, $15 per trip extra on a lot of these fares, that's when I think it's a business decision. You have to decide if it's worth it or not. But I think that there's a lot you can do to make sure you're sort of prepared, right? If you have to go out and buy brand new snow tires and all that, it may not be worth it. But if you already drive a car, let's say, you like going up to driving around in the snow anyways, that's sort of a good way to take advantage of it there. Gramita, Jason says, I'm worried about other drivers hitting me. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I think that's a challenge whether you're driving in snow or not, though. If you're, when you're out there, especially late at nights, you can always control your driving, but you can't control other drivers, how they're driving out on the road. So that's sort of what I would say there. And it's just another good reason to always make sure you have a dash cam. I know we did, I went live last week talking about Uber's safety report and, how there were 3,000 incidents. And so that might be a good segue into that story. In case you guys missed it, you can definitely check out the video that I did on that. I'll leave a link to it right now. But basically, Uber released this safety report. You probably got an email from Dara Khosrowshahi, and basically, let's see if I can find this 3,000 Uber rideshare. So basically, Uber released this safety report, and there are 3,000 allegations of sexual assault claims. So I'm going to leave a link right now to that in the show notes, and you guys can check that out. But basically, you probably read the email and kind of what it said. But I think that one of the big takeaways for me was that I find that dash cams, they're great for recording accidents, if there's stuff going on outside or inside your car, and having that evidence in case, right? Like someone just said that you can't control what other drivers do. So if you're the best driver in the world, but someone just rams into you and T-bones you, you're going to be out of work, you're going to be out of commission. And if you don't have dash cam footage, it may not prove that the other person is at fault. You may not end up getting everything that you're entitled to. But I think secondarily, I found that dash cams, one of the best benefits of them is that they have either that little green blinking light or that little blue blinking light, and passengers notice, passengers see it. They may not always say something, but when they know that they're on camera, they tend to behave better. So that's sort of one benefit that I've seen. So even if you guys go out and get a cheap $50 dash cam, at a minimum, it can be seen as a deterrent. And if you don't have one, stick around to the end of this YouTube live, because we're going to be giving away 2 dash cams. I thought that might make for a timely giveaway. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. William says, didn't you say that it's not that many if you do the math? Yeah, that's a good point. So talking about the Uber safety report, it's tough because these are, basically, sexual assault claims, right? And so it's a very sensitive topic, and you don't want to downplay it, right? Like one sexual assault is too many, but at the same time, right, if there were 3,000 allegations, and this is not just police reports, these are, police reports plus what Uber determined to be allegations, 3,000 obviously sounds like a ton, but if the fact, the company's doing 3 million rides a day, when you kind of add all the numbers up and divide it by the total number of rides they do every year, then it's actually, I think it's 0.0003%. So it's a very, very small percentage. But one thing just to kind of, counterpoint even that is that a lot of the allegations, that were from female drivers, for example, or there aren't many female drivers. I think there was only about 20% female drivers, but almost half of these allegations were from like almost all of the allegations were from female drivers, right, or female passengers. So that's another thing too, that I think that the numbers may be a little worse. Like basically, it's to say, there's not a lot of male drivers that I think are being sexually assaulted, basically, right? So if there's a small number of female drivers, it could be a little worse than it seems. So definitely, I think driving can be a somewhat unsafe job. So you guys have to just understand the reality that there's some unsafe aspects of it and do what you can to protect yourself. So definitely let me know what you guys think about that. I see that Rob says he's had a dash cam for 2 years and has a 4.95 star rating. Jonathan says, do you think Uber did their own investigation to control the results? A third-party company might have found much more info. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing is, Uber released a safety report, but they didn't have to. There was no one that said they had to release this safety report. So on one hand, I would commend Uber for doing this. But of course, this is Uber and they don't have the best history or, I don't think they're a company that's trustworthy, I guess you would say, right? So I would take all of their numbers with a grain of salt. But when you do look at the methodology, I think that they did a reasonably, good job. They act, like I said, right? They didn't just report police reports, right? So I saw some other people sharing stats about taxis, but, reports on taxis are just police reports. Uber actually did everything, any type of like serious alleged sexual assault. They didn't include some smaller stuff though, like I want to say like masturbation or I don't know. Some of these things I was reading were a little strange, but some of these, smaller allegations or misconduct, or maybe it was like what's it called, indecent exposure, right? They didn't include some of that stuff, only the more serious stuff. So we'll see what happens. Sergio, one of Rideshare Guy contributors, he says statistics say that only 1 of 3 females report incidents. The number is probably much higher. And yeah, that's a good point. One thing that I think sort of works not in Uber's favor, but one of the good things about Uber from the passenger point of view is that it is so easy to report bad drivers or to report bad behavior, right? If someone, goes out and, if you're a female passenger and some driver tries to attack you or something like that and you run away from the car, you may not have time to get the license plate or the cab number if you're in a taxi. Whereas if you're on Uber, you can literally just go into the app and report it that way. So that's sort of the good about it. Now, of course, drivers have also seen the bad about that because we know that there's many false allegations and sometimes passengers try to, say certain things so that they can get their ride comped and all that crap. And then you have to deal with Uber's customer service. But again, that's sort of where I think having that dash cam comes in handy. It may not always, you may have a lot of trouble showing your dash cam footage to employees at Uber, but if it was like a legal situation where the cops were investigating you over some false allegation, you could always show them the dash cam footage in that respect. So that's enough on that story. But let me know if you guys have any other questions there. Jonathan says it definitely was solid to include the assault on drivers as well. So I'll give you that. And yeah, that's an important point. Of these 3,000 alleged assaults, almost half were actually reported by drivers, right? It wasn't just passengers. So I think that's important to note. Let's see. I see some questions coming in about Uber Freight. So is anyone in here driving for Uber Freight? So we actually have an article that we did on Uber Freight, kind of looking into it and how it works, because I know we've got a lot of truck drivers or potential truck drivers out there. So if you guys want to know a little bit more about Uber Freight and how it works, I'll leave a link to that in the live chat and you can check that out. Let's see. Nathaniel says, I never signed Uber's new terms and agreements. How long is that going to go for till I get deactivated? Well, Sergio actually just did an article on Uber's new terms of service. So I think it happened on November 15th. They sent out this new terms of service, and basically you had to agree to it in order to drive on the platform. So I'll leave an article to that in the live chat. But basically, the gist of Uber's new terms of service agreement, I mean, they do these things from time to time, right? They're like 20 to 30 pages, and it's a bunch of legalese and and nonsense that no one really understands, and they send it to you right before you're about to log in to drive. So of course, everyone basically signs it, right before they're about to drive because they want to go online and make money. And I think the one key thing to know there is that, yeah, you do basically have to sign it if you want to keep driving for Uber. So you won't technically be deactivated if you don't sign it, but you also can't drive for Uber if you don't sign it. So it's sort of like a quasi deactivation. But what you can do is opt out of the arbitration afterwards. So if you don't want to, so basically, if you sign these new terms of service agreement, you're agreeing to Uber's terms that say if you want to sue them, you have to do it through arbitration. And some people feel that it's much better to opt out, and that way you can be part of class actions and kind of hold Uber a little bit more accountable. And so I know that's what Sergio recommended in his article, and that's what he did. Personally, I don't know. I'm not convinced, to be honest. I haven't seen a really convincing argument that opting out of arbitration really makes that much sense. I mean, I guess you can be part of this class action, but also, I don't know. I don't think drivers have really been paid too much because of these class actions. There was this hood settlement that I know some Uber drivers got paid of, but this main one, this employee independent contractor lawsuit, the O'Connor lawsuit, at one point it was $100 million settlement. Then I think it was $20 million, and that was years ago. So I don't know. I don't know that it's like the biggest deal whether you opt out or not. And actually, we have a really interesting article and video coming up in the next few weeks that you guys should stay tuned for, because Jay has actually been investigating the arbitration process, and he is working with a lawyer right now. And these lawyers that we found, I mean, there's a bunch of them that do it, but they're basically trying to sue Uber and Lyft through arbitration, and they're taking on drivers' cases free of charge. They take a 33 to 40% cut when it's all said and done, but they take your case free of charge, and they basically help you go through the arbitration process. And if you're someone like Jay who has thousands of rides, when he ran the numbers on the calculator, it turned out to be it was like $600,000 that Uber and Lyft may owe him. Now, that might be a lot higher than it ends up being. I think he conservatively estimated it might be closer to 300,000, and then if the lawyers take a 40% cut, he might still be at $180,000 though, which is pretty crazy. So that's a lot more money to me than any of these class action lawsuits are getting for drivers. So definitely keep an eye out for that video. It's a long way of saying, I don't know, I'm not convinced. I think arbitration actually might be better for the individual driver. So if you guys do want to learn a little bit more of that, if you want to opt out, we actually have a link in that article that Sergio wrote, what you need to know about Uber's new terms of service agreement. And Rideshare Drivers United has made a form where you can actually really easily opt out and send an email to Uber. So if you guys do want to opt out of the arbitration agreement part of the new terms of service, you can do that in that article and learn more about that. So let's see. Jonathan says, wait till the large list O'Connor pays out to the opt-out class. They've already paid out to the opt-ins, and it was a sizable small check. The opt-outs should be double. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jonathan, because I think that case, it was at 100 million and then now it's at 20 million. I mean, actually, I know the website. It's uberlawsuit.com. I can go to it right now and sort of see what the latest is. It says the latest, we've reached a $20 million settlement on behalf of drivers who are not bound by Uber's arbitration clause who have worked in California or Massachusetts. So let's say that you opted out of the arbitration agreement. You're now entitled to be part of this 20 million. Now, I think if you guys just started driving and opt out of this agreement, you may not be entitled to this 20 million. But I mean, let's say there's $20 million. What is that? 20. All right. So let's do some quick math. Times 0.6. So let's say the lawyer's cut is 40%. That leaves 12 million. And now $12 million, if you have $12 million divided by, let's say, what do you think, the 100,000 drivers in California, you might be looking at a payment of $120. If there's only 10,000 drivers, it's only $1,200. So that's sort of my point. Even with that $20 million settlement, right, after the lawyer's fees, and then after you divide it by all the drivers and kind of depending on how much you've driven, I don't know that it's going to end up being much more than a couple $100. Whereas you have Jay over here going through the arbitration process. And this, we're still really learning about this, but I don't know. I think the potential pay payout might be a lot higher that way. So either way, if you guys want to learn more about opting out, I'm going to leave a link right now in the live chat, and you can learn more about that process. So Ray's World says, Go Donny Khan says, opt out equals deactivation. So just real quick to address that point, technically, right, Uber and Lyft like can, and I don't know, I think probably sometimes they do deactivate drivers for whatever reason they want, but legally they are not allowed to deactivate you if you opt out of the arbitration agreement. So that's what's legal. Now, can they still do it and you have no repercussions? Yes, but I think it would be really stupid of them to do that. So even though I may not be in completely for opting out, I don't think you'll get deactivated for doing it. So I just saw another question come in. Jonathan says it's great to discuss this. Very important for drivers to know the options. Yeah, and that's my biggest thing right here is, I'm not trying to tell you guys what to do. I'm just sort of trying to say, here's what some drivers are doing. Here's what other drivers are doing. You guys need to kind of balance and weigh the pros and cons and make the best decision for yourself. Like one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this arbitration process is because I haven't seen anyone talk about it or do it or write about it or do videos on it. And I think it could actually end up better financially for the drivers. So we'll see. I don't know for sure yet, but it is looking promising there. Jonathan says, I've opted out in some cases and never been deactivated. H. Malesio says, hey, Harry, can I use a fare car rental for both Uber and Lyft? So the quick answer is no, you can only use a fare car rental for Uber. And if you want to do both Uber and Lyft, though, hire car is a good option for that. And frankly, I've seen that actually Fair is having a lot of issues right now. They in November or end of October they laid off 40% of their staff, and there's no cars available right now on Fair. They have almost no supply, so they're going through a lot of issues right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they cut their bonuses or sort of messed with things there. So the Fair program was kind of our top recommendation for a while, and seems like they're having some trouble right now. So I still think it's an option for drivers, but you might want to just keep that in mind and look at other options too, especially if you're looking at doing Uber and Lyft. Something like hire car is probably going to be a lot better there. Let's see what other questions we have coming in here. The lawsuit regarding the new terms and agreement. Not sure what that is about. Yeah, a lot of lawsuits to keep track of, huh? Mike says, has anyone had any experience with the driver disability insurance? It's a bad deal if you are collecting Social Security, disability, or retirement benefit. So, yeah, I know in some, or I think most or all cities, Uber now has this option that you can opt into to get a little bit of extra. What do they call it? I think they call it it's not disability insurance, but it's sort of like protection insurance, or has some acronym or some name like that. I haven't actually used it myself or talked to drivers who experience it, so I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question. But let's see. RT says, has the rollout of ride requests, including info about destination and costs in CA, continued to more drivers? So yeah, the big news, I think, we talked about the safety report, but I think really the biggest news of the past month was this new feature. I mean, I guess really new set of features that Uber released, kind of giving, drivers basically what they wanted in regards to the pickup screen, right? So now, and just to kind of recap, if you're in California. So these features are first being rolled out to California, and 30% of drivers in California are going to get them to start. And basically, over the next month or two, every driver in California is going to get them. So if you're in California and you don't have these new features yet that tell you basically, how much the fare is going to be and where the pickup point is and where the drop off is going to be, then it will be coming soon. If you're in another state, Uber has basically indicated that they might roll this out to other states in the future, but California to start. So I'm going to leave a link to the article that you guys can learn more about that. But I think this is really interesting. You know, we have Ezra. He's been testing this. He's working, like I mentioned, he's working on a video right now about how much he was able to earn, and it's definitely interesting because you have so much more information. I think what these features, you know, that tell you how much and where the passengers are going, really, I think they might actually. I mean, they're going to be. You know, I think obviously they're definitely a good thing for drivers, but I think they're going to add a lot of potential earnings, like to the drivers who are very strategic, who are really thinking about which rides they should and shouldn't take, and understanding that, okay, if I take this ride and combine it with a consecutive ride bonus, it may not be worth it. I might have to ignore this and lose my bonus and go to the next one. Some of these like kind of complicated strategies that we often talk about, I think that a lot of those drivers who are using a lot of strategy might be rewarded by this information. So definitely let me know if you guys have any questions there. I saw a couple questions come in while I was talking. H. Malesio says, "Have you heard of drivers getting declined a car rental because of bad credit?" Yeah, I know on Fair, if you some drivers with bad credit don't get they won't get a car rental because of bad credit. And Air Attacker says, "I'm interested in the arbitration process and the lawyers that you mentioned. I've used AAA for arbitration against Uber and Lyft. They were not helpful." Well, we have a video that's going to be coming out in a week or two, Air Attacker. So definitely make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and you'll definitely see. I think that video is going to be pretty popular because Jay's potential earnings through arbitration are going to be, like conservatively a couple $100,000. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens there. Rob says, "More info on the California app changes for Uber." Yeah, let me know if you guys want to know anything else there. I know we did see, I don't have the new features in California, but I know that Ezra told me he didn't see the estimated amount yet. He saw the pickup and drop off location, but for some reason, he didn't have the estimated amount. So I'm curious if anyone else has seen that. Go Donny Khan says, "Unfortunately, nobody ever talks about oversaturated market, especially during Christmas time. Too many chickens, not enough eggs. Come on, man. People working for peanuts." Well, I guess what I'd say, Donnie, is if you think about it, right, like one of the things that people love about driving for Uber and Lyft is that it's so easy to get signed up and started, or it's so easy to kind of work as much or as little as you want. So you can kind of imagine, hey, if you're a part-time driver and you're driving only around the holidays because you need extra money to buy presents or to go on vacation or whatever it might be. This is like the time to drive. So I guess one thing that I would say to answer, to give you advice in this time of year is to think about like what are those times and places that normally they might busy, but now all the drivers, they know like, okay, come out Friday, Saturday nights or come out in the busy areas. So I think that might mean you have to go look to other areas or try other strategies. This might be kind of the time to do it. It's like all the low hanging fruit right now is being taken by, maybe all of those drivers who are coming out because of the holidays. So that's how I would think about that and try to take advantage of that. Let's see. Colleen says, "Can you tell me a little bit about when you get a ride? California doesn't have how much money it's going to cost on a ride." Yeah. So, Colleen, I think you're talking about the new features that Uber released and how you're supposed to see the actual amount that you're going to make. But I think drivers are reporting that that amount isn't there yet. I don't know. Maybe they just haven't added it. But the pickup and drop off if you're one of those drivers in California with the new app changes. So that's really all you need. I mean, you can kind of estimate. You can kind of see like, okay, this is long, short, medium. You might not be able to guess it to the dollar, but you'll know if it's like $10, $20, or $45. So not a huge deal there. Jonathan says, "I now see destination, estimated fare, map of the ride, but it moves fast. You got to be able to make quick decisions. Info varies by driver and possibly the type of pro." Interesting. Yeah. So, Jonathan, I wonder what level of Uber Pro you are, because Ezra, I don't think he is any level of Uber Pro. He's the lowest blue or whatever it is. And he's not seeing the estimated fare. So, Jonathan, I'm curious to know what level you are because it sounds like you are seeing estimated fare. And yeah, that's the one thing I feel like, you kind of have to be a little careful now. If you're looking at all this information, you definitely don't want to be driving. I think it almost makes a lot more sense now to try and pull over as soon as you drop off a passenger and really, kind of sit there and wait for a request so that you have time to analyze the request. Because I think that's really these new features, it kind of is making drivers like have to really think about whether they should take this next request or not and be thoughtful and not just accept every request. I mean, I think there's still going to be a lot of drivers who just take every request, right? I mean, that's how most people drive. Most people don't watch this channel and most people aren't out there educating themselves. They just flip the app on and go and drive. Sergio did an article where he went out and interviewed 40 random Uber and Lyft drivers in the LAX lot. And I think most of them, or if not almost all of them, a bunch of them didn't even know about destination filter. It's like one of the most powerful tools you can potentially use before. So that's what I would say there. Gramito, I know he's a big fan of UPS. He says drive for UPS with your own car during the holidays. They can't get enough drivers and vehicles. Yeah, I think that could definitely be cool. Larry says, how do we defend ourselves against allegations from passengers that are untrue? Lyft just deactivates you and leaves you hanging until they get around to it. Yeah. So I think this is one of the things that, like, frankly, sucks the most about driving is that you can go out and do thousands of trips for Uber or thousands of trips for Lyft, be a 4.95 star rated driver and be a great driver and an asset to the company. And one false report by a passenger, an alleged false claim, and they could, Uber or Lyft could deactivate you basically without any reason and never talk to you. I don't think they're going to just randomly deactivate anyone, but let's say a passenger says something for whatever reason, and if it's false, then you don't have, I'll be honest, like you don't have a lot of recourse, and that's one of the things that sucks. I know another YouTuber right now. I've been trying to help him out. Geo Rideshare Revolution has had this happen to him on Uber, and I don't know all the details about it, but from the outside, what I see is, he's a 4.9 star rated driver, done thousands of trips. If you know him, he's a little bit rough around the edges, but I don't think he would say, it just doesn't make sense to me that he would like sacrifice his whole driving career over one comment to a passenger. And Uber is basically, it sounds like they're taking one passenger's word over something that Geo said to them that they didn't like, or that was maybe, I don't think it wasn't, definitely wasn't physical or anything like that, but it was like some type of verbal thing that he said that they didn't like, and Uber deactivated him over it. So, I think the one thing that I will say, like from his situation, he did have Lyft as a backup, and that's why I always say, like, you have to be signed up with Uber and Lyft at a minimum. But I don't know that drivers have a lot of recourse. So that's sort of, one of the things that does suck, to be frank. Avid says, are you still backing Maestro? They refused to cancel my subscription. What is your take on this? So, Maestro was a company that I was a big fan of for a few years and was promoting. But long story short, they ended up actually, basically, the company actually dissolved and sold to another provider called AnyRide. And so I'm no longer like personally affiliated with Maestro. I still think the idea is great. And I know there's other companies like Maestro, Maximo, and I think there's one other like Taxi something. I can't remember the name, but I think there's one or two others. I still think the idea is great and really helps drivers, but I don't have like a personal affiliation with Maestro anymore because of, they basically kind of like sold to, dissolved and sold to another provider. So I think that, to my knowledge, though, they did find, they were having some issues with Lyft, and Lyft kind of kept blocking Maestro. And that's really kind of like what set the company on a downward trajectory. And it looks like the new owners, AnyRide, were able to figure out a way around what Lyft was doing to block them. And so the last time I checked, the Maestro app was still working, but it does seem like they've had some issues, transitioning from the old owners to the new owners, basically. Let's see. M. Sawyer says, who thinks the previous Uber app was better than the current piece of shit? I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I guess you're talking about the old Uber driver app. I mean, they haven't updated the Uber driver app in a while. I don't know that there's a ton. They've added like some new products and some new features, but I mean, the actual Uber driver app has kind of stayed the same for a while. So I don't know if I have any real. I mean, I think in general, whenever companies change the app, or Facebook like rolls out a new news feed back in the day, right? Everyone gets pissed at the start, but I think usually when companies change apps, it's for the better. But it does seem, I mean, I know Uber app, I think recently, right? Wasn't it a few weeks ago that the Uber app actually went down for a few hours? So I think that's what's really more important to me. I remember when I chatted, about the new Uber driver app when it came out a couple years ago. One of the things they told me was that they were doing this because they wanted to make it more reliable and more stable and all of that. But it still seems like they have some issues from time to time. I was kind of surprised about that. Let's see. Dave, the Uber slave, is on. Good to see you, Dave. He says the irony that Geo commented creep in several of my videos. I'm not sure what that means, but I'll let you guys handle that one. Steven says, Harry, what do you know about the tax issue in Illinois? Utah is also set to levy a tax on rideshare. So this is a really good question. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's actually a lot of cities right now passing taxes on Uber and Lyft trips. And I believe in Chicago, it's like up to 70 cents or a dollar, or, I mean, it's like kind of significant. I mean, sometimes it's like $1 per ride in some of these cities. Seattle just passed something. And I think, the challenge for your, like the issue that I have with a lot of these taxes is that it's basically charging the passenger more for a ride, and it goes straight to the city, right? Drivers aren't getting anything. I mean, even Uber isn't really getting anything out of it. So I'm not in love with all these new taxes and fees. I mean, obviously, without getting too political, all of these cities have issues with budgets, and they sort of see Uber and Lyft as like these big rich companies, like, oh, let's go tax them and make money. I think what I want to see though is I want to see that if they are taxing these rides, they got to be reinvesting it into the community, whether it's public transit, or I saw a proposal from the city of Seattle that I really liked. They started adding taxes for Uber and Lyft, but they're also at the same time now going to institute a minimum wage for drivers. And what's really interesting is that they're creating a third party driver resolution center. So all of those issues we talked about before, about, if you're falsely accused in the city of Seattle, and, the future, whenever they get it set up, you're actually going to be able to go to this organization, and they're going to like arbitrate disputes on your behalf and Uber, right? So you can go and basically argue. I don't know how the logistics will work, but that's what I read. It sounds like they're going to kind of use some of those taxes to fund a driver resolution center. So if you are unfairly deactivated, you actually have someone that you can go to. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that sounds great. For sure. Take 50 cents from every ride, or, a reasonable amount if you're going to do stuff like that. But Seattle is the only city that I've heard of that happening. Defenstrator says, I can see the new California only Uber features. There's no price estimate though for some reason, but you can estimate it by the time and distance shown. Yeah, that's what Ezra told me. So curious to know why some drivers are seeing it and why some aren't. That's kind of interesting. Jonathan does, following up, he says, I'm only gold, but I used to be diamond. But they make it hard to maintain your level when you're strategic. Once you're gold, I think you'll see everything, and gold is relatively easy if you're an ant. Very funny, Jonathan. But what's interesting with these new California features on Uber is that you don't need to maintain an 85% acceptance rate to stay part of Uber Pro anymore. So that's pretty interesting there. Mike says, I got deactivated on Saturday afternoon by a crank rider who said I was drunk, got reactivated again after 36 hours and the Uber investigation. Excuse me. So this is one of those situations where I sort of tell drivers, like, sometimes you just get unlucky, right? Like, imagine, you're driving imagine you're Uber, right? And you get a report from a rider that a driver is drunk, right? Like, they kind of have to temporarily deactivate the driver while they investigate this situation. And hopefully, it's very quick and there's a quick turnaround time. But sometimes, like in Mike's case, he says that it took 36 hours for them to investigate it. Maybe they had to call him or email him. And usually all it is they get you on the phone and talk to you and just make sure that you're not drunk. But they do kind of have to do something, right? Because you can imagine if a driver really was drunk and they let them keep doing rides after several reports from riders that they were drunk, that would kind of create like a huge shitstorm for them. But in that situation, that's just why it's important to have Lyft or another service as a backup, basically. So that's how I handle that. James says Texas passed a state legislator in the state legislature passed something prohibiting cities from hampering the rideshare company's business. Not sure if it prohibits a tax though. Interesting. I haven't heard of that. Rob says Lyft is threatening to pull out of Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix due to a new $5 fee added on to the drop off and pickup. No word from Uber yet. So, yeah, airports are another area. Here in LAX, we saw that they moved this whole pickup area because Uber and Lyft, according to them, were causing all of this congestion and traffic and things like that. And so they moved it off terminal. So now passengers have to take a shuttle over to what they call the LA exit terminal, which is honestly, it's a lot worse than it sounds. It's not bad. And after kind of initial week of a lot of kinks and chaos, they did figure it out. But I mean, LAX, for example, charges $4 on every pickup and drop off. So these are fees that the passenger pays basically straight to the airport. You've probably seen it on your trip receipt, but I don't know if there's a whole lot you can do there. Steven says third party resolution sounds awesome, and I totally agree there. Sergio says glaring number in the safety report was that Uber did 2.1 billion rides in 2 years and managed to lose over $10 billion, including the IPO cost. Yeah, that's a good point. So that's basically they lost $5 a ride, right? That's not too good. Let's see. Mario says they often tax Uber and Lyft to cover transportation costs or to implement congestion pricing. I think that's like the goal, but I don't know. I don't think too many cities are implementing congestion pricing. If you guys are interested in that, I've interviewed a couple transportation experts, Jarrett Walker, Bruce Schaller, on my podcast about this. And I think a lot of them agree that congestion pricing is actually one of the best ways to get traffic down and kind of reduce congestion, basically, as you might have guessed. So let's see. Janine says, I'm in California. No change yet at all for me. Redestination. Yeah. So it might take a month or two before every driver in California gets these new Uber changes, but we'll see what happens. Looks like we got a lot of good questions coming in here. We're up to almost 100 people watching live. Only 33 likes, though. So if you guys haven't given this video a thumbs up yet, definitely go ahead and do that now. And I'll just give you a quick reminder that we'll be doing a giveaway in about 15 or 20 minutes when we end the YouTube live, and we're giving away 2 Blue Sea Sky dash cams. I don't have them around, but they're real and they are pretty good dash cams. We like them a lot. They're actually one of the kind of the best price point dash cams that we've found, sort of like best bang for your buck. There are a lot of nice cameras that are like 200, 250 bucks, but that's a little pricey in my opinion. I think I like the ones that are good quality, two-way dash cams for around 150 bucks. So definitely stay tuned for that. And all right, I see all the likes going up now. Thank you guys for that. And just a quick reminder, if you do want to catch me live, like I went live last week about Uber safety report. So if you missed that, you may need to turn notifications on. So hit that bell, or here, where is it? Down? Where is it? Up? Wherever that bell is, hit that bell, turn notifications on. So that way you'll get a little notification on your phone when I go live and whenever we release a new video. Paula looks like, Paula, you might have changed your name. It's UGP, the rideshare assistant. She says Blackview is actually the best dash cam, and it may be, but I will say the Blackviews are by far the most expensive dash cams out there. So I'd rather a driver have something than nothing. D Fenestrator says, how do we enter to win one of the dash cams? I'll do a little giveaway in about 15 minutes. I'll let you guys know how to enter, but it'll just be sending me a quick email and answering just a very quick question. It'll probably be something around safety since we're talking dash cams. So maybe how you stay safe on the road, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'll do that giveaway in about 10 or 15 minutes. And let's see. Steven says, when all the drivers in California can see the destination, who is going to pick up unprofitable short trips? Well, Steven, one of the interesting things that we're already seeing with drivers having access to this new data is that Uber really bumped up their consecutive ride bonus, right? The CRB this week in LA. I think it was the highest I've ever seen it. I know I've got Sergio here in the comments. Let me know, Sergio. I believe it was 3 rides for $16.50. Sergio, I don't know if you've ever seen anything higher than that amount, but that's the highest I've ever seen. And so you can kind of imagine what stuff like that does, or also quest bonuses, right? Where you want to get as many short trips as you can. I think there's actually going to be times where having this information is going to help you because you're going to want short trips. And at other times, it's going to help you because you're going to want longer trips. But what's important is that you, as a driver, really understand when you want short trips and when you want long trips and when you want medium trips, for example, right? When do you want a trip? There's going to be certain trips, for example, like I think I was talking to Ezra, and just a quick example, it's a little complicated, but hopefully you guys can follow me. He got the first ride of a consecutive ride bonus. This is a bonus where you do have to do 3 trips in a row. You have to accept every trip and you get $16.50. And so he got that first ride, he took it. And the second one that he got was a 45-minute ride that was going to take him all the way across LA and be in traffic, and there was no surge. And he actually declined that trip and declined basically getting that consecutive ride bonus because he felt that he could make more money by staying more local and getting that next ride on surge, and kind of racking up those short rides on surge. So there's sort of times where you're going to have to make those choices. So I don't think that it's just I actually don't know that short, there's going to have to be some system in place that makes you want to take those short trips, and Uber kind of does already have those systems with like a quest and consecutive ride bonus, which are tend to be in the bigger cities. Let's see. What other questions do we have? M. Sawyer says, but I don't live in a hot area. So I think if you're talking about hot, like rideshare hot, rideshare rides hot, then yeah, it will be interesting to see though how some of these features work in the smaller to medium markets where they don't have some of these bonuses, and like frankly, some of these short rides might get stuck. But I also feel like I don't know. I think it might kind of be like some of these short rides that are unprofitable for drivers. Like I think maybe riders, those just they just need to pay more for those. Frankly, that's kind of what I think might happen. So we'll see. Excelsior says, why does it take a month or two to see the destination? But they also make sure we take selfies every 10 days. That is not delayed by 2 months. Well, I mean, just in general, outside of Uber, like it never makes a lot of sense to roll out completely brand new changes to everyone all at once. You can even see with this, they pilot it in a few cities and then they roll it out to 30% of drivers. And then they're going to work out all the kinks over the next month or two, and then everyone will have it. So that's why they do it. I wouldn't, if you have a problem with that system, I mean, there's a lot of companies. That's like the smart way to do it. Because if there are issues, you want to figure them out first. It does suck though, obviously, if you're one of the people that doesn't get it at the start. So M. Sawyer says, my Vantru N2 Pro is going strong. I agree. I'm a big fan of the Vantru. I think it's kind of one of the best dash cams you can get for the value. I actually have one in my car and my wife's car. So big fan of that one. Dan says, second time. Sorry if I missed the first question. Does your star rating and acceptance rate while under Lyft move you up on the queue? So I don't know if you're talking about airport queue or just in general Lyft's matching algorithm, but I haven't found that the star rating and acceptance rate play a part in you getting more or less rides on Lyft. But what it does do, on in the cities where Lyft shows you the destination or shows you the long trip notification, or kind of similar to how Uber Pro used to have, right? They would give you like a little bit of information about the trip if you maintain a certain acceptance rate. So that's the only way that it really matters, I believe. Nathaniel says, how much do you think the rates are going to be raised in California after January 1st? Well, the rates aren't going to be raised at all. They're going to be exactly the same. I think you might be talking about AB5, but there's nothing in the text of the law that says rates have to be raised. And Uber and Lyft have already said that they're not going to comply with AB5, that they don't feel like drivers are employees. So I think there's going to be a huge legal fight. And kind of what I'm worried about is that nothing, drivers might not get anything. But I guess I will say that like one of, whether you're for or against AB5, Uber was pretty clear that they're making a lot of these changes in California because of AB5. So in that respect, I would thank a lot of the supporters, even though I haven't been, like a big supporter of AB5 in that sense. I think that we can all kind of thank a lot of the supporters of AB5 for basically bringing about these changes, which I think that I haven't really seen any drivers that have been unhappy with these new features coming to Uber in California. I think it's pretty well agreed upon that everyone's a big fan. of these new features. Although some of the pessimists I know, like Sergio, told me he thinks Uber is going to cut rates because of this, but we'll see. Um, let's see what questions we have coming in. All right. Uh, I see some people swearing in the comments. Dieter, I don't know who you're yelling at. I'll put. Don't make me put you guys. Don't make me put anyone in a quick timeout. But we'll see what happens there. Jonathan says, "Harry, we're already received something. We see the destination." Yeah, so that's a good point. You may not see higher rates, but you will. Where our drivers are already starting to get more information, which can lead to higher rates, and that's definitely a good thing. Jonathan says, big thanks to Rideshare Drivers United and the other groups who organize protests and grind it out because they care for drivers. I agree. Paula says, Blackview is out of sight and use my broken van true as they can take it as it's got nothing on it. Uh, Dan says, I was moved to the top of the queue at Philadelphia Airport last week. Let's see what other questions. Oh, James says, when I cancel a ride on Lyft, they ask the question, why did you cancel this ride? Pick up too far, other, etc. Was wondering if you know what they're asking this for. I mean, I think that they're asking this in general to get better feedback, but also some cancellations don't count against your don't count against your cancellation rate, or that's at least what Uber and Lyft say. If you cancel because there's a minor, I don't know if that option is on Lyft. I believe it's still on Uber, right? Or if you cancel for some reason, like basically if the passenger screwed up and you select that reason for cancellation, it shouldn't count against your cancellation rate. And you can't be deactivated for a low acceptance rate, right? You can ignore as many trips as you want, but you can't cancel as many trips as you want. Although I will say I haven't heard of too many or maybe even any drivers being deactivated for cancellation rates lately, because it's kind of like one of those gray area employee independent contractor things. So I know some drivers have gotten pretty aggressive with their cancellation rates and haven't been deactivated. But then again, you got to balance the risk with the reward and see if it's worth it. So let's see. Scott says the minor you can cancel because of a minor of it's available on both apps, so that's good to know. Rideshare Lisa says there's an option for a minor, but they don't pay a cancellation fee for it. So I'm pretty sure we did a video on this recently, but I have got a good tip for you guys. What I always do whenever I cancel in general. So if you're canceling on a minor, I know that sometimes drivers have told me they've gotten paid for it, and sometimes they haven't. One way though to ensure that you're going to get paid is just to wait the 5 minutes, right? To do whatever they say to cancel like a normal cancellation, right? Because if you do that, then you can ensure that you're going to get that cancellation fee, right? And if the passenger complains or whatever, then you can argue with Lyft and tell them, oh, they were also a minor. But I think you want to make sure, because if you go through like their official cancellation process and wait the 5 minutes and then call and cancel or whatever it is, then that way that like automatically triggers a cancellation fee, where it seems like some of these other like random cancellation options don't always trigger that fee. So that is how I would handle that. Let's see. Dieter is in. Okay, seems a little angry. All right. Rob says, I just got a tip from Uber passengers during the stream. Harry, you rock. Well, that's a nice little bonus right there. Don't forget to thank your passenger. I like that feature now. You can, on Uber, you can thank the passenger if they leave a tip. So that's a cool one. And we have a video on that. If you guys are interested, that'll be coming out soon about how to thank your passenger. I don't know. It's pretty straightforward though. Let's see. I saw some people talking about Zoom and Hop Skip Drive. So these are rideshare services for kids. I know Paula's a big fan of them, and I know a lot of drivers are a fan of them. So there are definitely options if you guys are looking for other companies. Jonathan says my Falcon 360 that I bought years ago is wearing kind of thin. Hey, Jonathan, I still have a Falcon 360 that works, but my uncle has been using the car that it's on, and so I saw him driving the car, and he still got the Falcon. I'm pretty sure it's still working, it's still holding up strong. But yeah, the Falcon 360 is a little bit dated, so I might upgrade if you have the option. Scott says, whatever happened to Christian? So Christian was one of our old contributors, and he quit almost maybe at the beginning of 2019. And I think he went off to do his own thing. I don't know. I haven't really heard or seen much from him, but I think he's driving for Uber and Lyft in San Francisco now. Rideshare Lisa says, I'm seeing the same information on Uber Eats. Yeah, so Uber Eats changed their pay model. So if you guys are interested in the Uber Eats pay model, then you can definitely take a look at this video we recorded. But basically, I don't know, according to Elijah, who's one of our contributors on and kind of specialists on Uber Eats, he's not a fan. He feels that he's making a lot less money on Uber Eats since they changed this system. So I'll let you guys be the judge of that. Let's see. Rideshare Lisa says, I love the thank you feature. Now I'm just waiting to see if it helps with tips. I mean, I don't think it's going to directly help. I mean, think about it, right? You're probably never going to see that passenger again. Although now Uber has this favorite drivers feature in California, so you might. But I think just in general, it does a lot to encourage. It does a little bit to encourage everyone tipping. If I'm a rider and I left a driver tip, and then I get a little thanks later, it's like, oh, cool, the driver thanked me. I might be more likely to tip the next driver. So if more drivers thank the passengers for tipping, I think it's like a nice thing to do. And really doesn't take much time or energy or effort. It might kind of just lead to higher tipping percentages overall. Ray's World says, how do you say thanks for tips? I don't see that option. So not every driver has that option yet, but I think they're rolling it out to every driver basically, probably over the next few months. So you'll probably have it soon. Scott says, is favorite drivers only in California? Yep, it's one of the set of features that Uber added. So that is only available to some drivers in California right now. Carlos says, what do you think about Deliv? So I haven't actually tried Deliv myself, but I know some drivers have, had success with it. And I guess what I would say in general with a lot of these smaller services, especially when they first launch, I think that there's a lot of opportunity. Like if Deliv, keep an eye on companies like this, because when they first launch in your city, they tend to pay better bonuses, better pay. And, as a bunch of people pile on, like over time, it might get worse. But at the start, it could be pretty good and pretty promising. So that's what I would say about companies, like Deliv and others. Rideshare Lisa says, I think with all the bad blood between Uber and drivers, it may show riders that maybe we are trying to come together as a company. Dan says, Saturday I had a rider get sick in my vehicle. I processed the report and received the cleaning fee today. I got a direct call from the rider. Why did he get my direct number? Any ideas? So I've never heard of that happening. And normally Uber does not give your contact information out unless they were trying to connect you with a rider who says that they lost something. So I guess what that makes me think of, it's possible that the rider, reported that they left something in the car, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but really maybe they just wanted to call you and be like, hey man, what the hell, why'd you charge me for this puke fee? And maybe they kind of use that lost item trick to call you or to get Uber to connect you, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. But that may be what have happened. Rob says the Subway snack promotion is awful. Not one Subway I've been to takes it, even though Uber indicates it does. Yeah, I noticed that today for the first time in the driver app. I mean, I think it's just a free. I saw today that you get like a free snack. It was like a free 20-ounce soda when I looked at it. But I mean, hey, I think they were also doing cookies, but cookies, sodas, whatever. I mean, to be honest, it's not really the healthiest snack ever. So it might be a good thing that it doesn't work and you don't get it. But let's see. Ray's World says, I just ignore the snack. And M. Sawyer says, Rob, you aren't missing anything. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the giveaway right now. Sergio says, can I win the camera or am I excluded? I don't know. It might be kind of a scandal if you win the camera, Sergio, but enter and who knows, maybe you'll randomly get picked. But I hope not, because it might be a bit of a scandal if we give you one of these $150 cameras. But hey, you never know. So let's go ahead and do the giveaway. I've got two Blue Sea Sky dash cams that are, one of actually the favorite cameras we've reviewed recently. So if you guys don't end up winning, it might be a good one to purchase on Amazon. And I'll leave a link right now to the review we did of this cam. Let's see, where is it? Blue Sea Sky dash cam. You guys can go check that out to see what you're going to win. All you need to do to enter is send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and just tell me one thing you do to stay safe out on the road. And we will randomly enter you into the contest to win one of two Blue Sea Sky dash cams. So pretty simple, right? Email me, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and tell me one thing that you do to stay safe out on the road while driving. And then you might be entered, or you will be entered to win one of the two dash cams. So Paula says, I've never heard of that camera. I've never heard of it either until these guys reached out to us, but it is a pretty solid camera, and it's a nice one that we reviewed. So I think you guys will enjoy it. And then if we talked a lot about dash cams tonight. So if you guys have any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys haven't given this video a thumbs up yet, I would definitely appreciate that. As always, enjoyed you guys for the hour on my normal monthly YouTube Live. This might be the last one of the year unless there's some big breaking news before the end of the year. Otherwise, I'll be back for my normal monthly YouTube Live in January. So if you guys want to give this video a thumbs up, definitely go ahead and do that now. If you want to enter the contest for one of the two dash cams, just send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and tell me one thing you do to stay safe on the road. Stephen really wants you to hit like, so appreciate all the support, Stephen, and everyone else who joined. If this was your first time, thank you very much for joining. And if you're coming back, thanks for coming back. As always, it was a pleasure, and I'll see you all in the new year. Take care. Bye-bye.